three main rules of budgeting is identify, identify, identify. And with the processes and the guidelines set forth from Tyler in the priority-based budget process, we set all of our processes, all of our services, we put them in 4 different categories.
From Tyler Technologies, this is the Tyler Tech Podcast, where we explore the trends, technologies, and people shaping the public sector. I'm your host, Josh Henderson. Thanks for listening. On this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Chris Hall, Commissioner of Collier County, Florida, who sat down with me at Tyler Connect 2025 in San Antonio. Collier County is a community of more than 400,000 residents spread across nearly 2,000 square miles, and earlier this year they were recognized with the Tyler Excellence Award for their innovative approach to budgeting. In this conversation, we talk about how the county has reimagined its process through priority-based budgeting, and Commissioner Hall shares how Collier County shifted from manual, subjective methods to a data-driven, goal-oriented framework, what it's meant for fiscal responsibility and service delivery, and how the approach is helping identify real savings for the county. There's so much to get into, so let's jump right in. We hope you enjoy. All right, welcome to the Tyler Tech Podcast. Joining us today is Collier County, Florida Commissioner Chris Hall. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
To start, can you talk about what prompted Collier County to rethink its budgeting approach and why a more strategic and data-driven model was needed?
Yes, Josh, I can. To begin with, I ran for office right after COVID, and I ran on smaller government and less taxes. So I was elected overwhelmingly. So to keep a campaign promise, that was on the forefront of my brain coming into office. Well, for 13 years in a row prior to me getting there, Collier County raised taxes on the people. And, you asked me about why did we need a more strategic and data-driven approach? And that's because if we kept doing things the same way that we've always been doing, and we're going to get the same results that we've always been getting, which was not good. So we got together. I fought till 1:30 in the morning. There's 5 commissioners. And finally, they agreed with me that we would not raise taxes for this current year coming, that we would kind of get the cart before the horse. We would set our budget and limit the revenue and then force us to do something on the expenditure side. So thus enters priority-based budgeting.
Sure. That's great. And now you evaluated and scored more than 600 programs and services as part of the process. That seems to me to be a massive undertaking. So how did you approach this effort, and what did it take to build that inventory and score programs in a meaningful way to you?
So as I mentioned, we had to get away from the status quo. And I knew that priority-based budgeting existed. It used to be a big buzzword back in the day, and you didn't hear much about it anymore, but it just made sense to me. You spend your money based on what your priorities are. So we opened up a dialogue with actually artificial intelligence, started asking it questions about, which companies had government experience, similar size budget. And through that, we identified 12 different companies, interviewed every one of them, narrowed that down to 3, and Tyler was clear and above the best bang for our buck. So we're 2 years into this process, and it was a good choice.
That's good to know. 2 years in, you're very familiar with it now. It's part of the infrastructure there in Collier County. So once that framework was in place, how did priority-based budgeting help the county make more strategic and objective decisions about where to allocate those resources?
3 main rules of real estate is location, location, location.
Yeah.
3 main rules of budgeting is identify, identify, identify. And with the processes and the guidelines set forth from Tyler in the priority-based budget process, we set all of our processes, all of our services, we put them in 4 different categories. We had high cost, high impact. We had high impact, low cost. We had low impact, high cost, and then we had low impact, low cost. And within those 4 quadrants, we also took a look at what of these services that we provide that are in each one of these, which one's mandated by law, which ones do we cannot get rid of. We have to do that by state statute. And then the other ones we have, leeway on whether we want to do them or whether we don't. We also took into account public services. Southwest Florida is an affluent area. It's very safe, and people come there and they expect a lot. And, 600 services in a county is extreme. Most of them have 350 to 400. So that's how we identified these things. And then in the identification process, we saw where we had redundancies. We saw where we had duplications. We saw that we were doing things just because we've always done them. And we saw in areas that, hey, we need to step up here and we can implement this and that to get, to increase our service here and not doing it at an additional cost to the taxpayer.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Tyler Tech Podcast. Every day, public sector leaders are rethinking how technology supports their communities.
And more than ever, they're finding the answer in the cloud.
From streamlining operations and reducing technical debt to creating the flexibility to adopt AI and other emerging tools, cloud infrastructure is transforming how governments deliver services.
It's not just about migrating systems, it's about building a smarter, more resilient foundation for modernization, security, and innovation.
At Tyler, we understand how governments are making that shift, the trends driving adoption, ways to maximize long-term value, and the steps to make your journey a success.
Check out the resources in our show notes to learn more about the Cloud Advantage and how you can take the next step towards a government that's built to adapt.
The future of government is in the cloud. Now let's get back to the Tyler Tech Podcast. You've already identified $150 million in potential savings and new revenue opportunities and actively implemented $40 million of those. Can you share what this has meant in terms of real-world impacts such as service delivery and fiscal responsibility? And of course, sort of something that you ran on to become commissioner, the ability to lower the tax rate.
Yeah, and it's the same vein. We had to identify what was important, identify what was mandated versus what was costly and just, nice to have. And with the duplication and the redundancies that we eliminated, coming in with that grid, with those, within those guidelines, just, sitting down and doing the common sense things. Hey, where can we charge fees to the public to offset the expense? What grants are available? How can we sharpen our skills there? What kind of areas and what kind of services do we provide, especially in Parks and Rec, that we can create private-public partnerships? And we've had a lot of success doing that in just the first year. And, I was under the impression that we were going to do the hard work, because in that meeting at 1:30 in the morning, we all agreed that we would dive in and make the hard decisions. So I'm thinking in my mind, this is going to take a year. Well, that's been the most maddening thing for me is because, here we are 2 years in the process and we are just now getting to the real meat of this issue.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes time. Like you said, it's not an overnight process, and that patience and trust in the methodology is quite critical in all of it. How did you approach leading through that process and keeping stakeholders engaged, while that foundation was being built over the last couple of years?
That's really a good question because it's a huge undertaking, and we've had staff leadership that have been there 25, 30, some of them 35 years, and they'd always done things the way that they did things. So the first thing we had to do was we had to establish cost centers. And it's a generic term, but basically let's just say we spend $100 for postage. What does the $100 consist of? Is $25 of it stamps? Is $25 of it, for marketing? We identified every single cost center. And to do that, we had to get buy-in from the staff. We had to, first of all, we had to empower the employees. We empowered them. You have the leeway. We're going to widen the rails of government and let you operate a lot wider. And after we empowered the employees, we had the guidelines that were given to us by Tyler. These are the guidelines. These are the rails that you can run on. And then we took a programmatic approach instead of just you're the head of this department and you got to cut your budget 10% and, let's see what you come up with. No, we took a programmatic approach. And with that, we implemented the programs approach with our strategic plan from the leadership of the county and the direction that we wanted to get to meet our mission statement and our plans. And in doing that, we also included what the public wants. So we took what the public wants, put it to our strategic plan, scored each one based on priority. What's really important, what's nice to have, what we have to have, but we can kind of play with it a little bit. We took those scores, and then from that, we really came up with a data-driven approach that empowered us to, like you said, we've identified $150 million of savings and have implemented 40 of that so far.
It's amazing. And so as this becomes part of Collier County's standard approach, how do you see priority-based budgeting continuing to shape Collier County, really, from a budgeting standpoint, into the future?
Oh, easy. This is not an event. This is the new standard. It is the new way of life. And every one of our department heads and directors, they all understand that. So once we get the heavy lifting done, which we're right in the process, once we get that done, then this should flow year after year after year with just tweaks. And what it does, it gives us a continued focus versus an initiated focus.
And now, kind of to wrap things up here, for other public sector leaders listening who are looking to modernize their budgeting approach, what would be that advice you give them to kind of get that started?
Oh, that's a good question. Advice to the others who are thinking about this or considering it.
It's a loaded question.
No, it's really a good one. The first thing that I would recommend is have a serious discussion with your leadership. And you have to have buy-in from them. You have to communicate the vision, communicate the passion, communicate the need to your staff and to your leadership so that they join you in this. It's kind of like one puts 1,000 to flight, but two puts, 10,000 to flight. And so when you can get the staff buy-in, I'm going to say that that's 80% of the battle. And then lastly, it's the old Nike commercial. Just do it. You're going to make mistakes as you go. You're going to learn some things. You're going to see things that you didn't consider, and just be flexible and adjust from it. And in the end, you'll have it's not hard. This is not rocket science stuff. It's not a secret. It's pretty common sense. And the process that Tyler brings to the table is so well thought out and so thoughtful that it's just this step leads to this step, and everything is done for you. It just takes rolling up your sleeves and getting it done.
Well, that's great. And I think leaders will take a lot away from this conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time, Commissioner Hall, to chat with me today and sharing the story.
I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Awesome. As we heard today, budgeting is about much more than numbers. It's about aligning limited resources with what matters most to residents. Commissioner Chris Hall shared how Collier County has transformed its approach through priority-based budgeting, creating a framework that identifies redundancies, improves transparency, and helps the county deliver services more strategically, all while keeping fiscal responsibility front and center. If you'd like to learn more about priority-based budgeting or explore additional resources on today's topic, check out the show notes. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Fill out the listener survey linked in the notes, or reach out anytime at podcast@tylertech.com. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show so you never miss an episode. For Tyler Technologies, I'm Josh Henderson. Thanks for listening to the Tyler Tech Podcast.